Good morning, everyone. This is Heather Cooper with Playing with Paper Crafting, and I'm here with my regular Monday morning live. So today we're going to be looking at vintage cards, and they can be quite involved. Last couple of weeks ago I did this card, which was really involved. It had a lot of steps. But today I want to show you a quicker version, a similar version. I used the Forever Grapevine stamp set, or bundle, stamp set and dies. You can find them on page 76 in your new annual catalog. I guess it's not quite so new anymore, but it's the 2021-2022 Stampin' Up! Annual Catalog, page 76. And I like it because it's got that sort of flourishy kind of grapevine and some little extra touches that make it fun to do for something that's vintage. And again, I used, as I did in my other card, I used the soft seafoam, because that's a really good color to use for vintage looking cards. And I did a lot of sponging, but I think we'll just get right into it. So we're starting with a base, your regular half a sheet of cardstock base. So it's 8.5 by 5.5, and it's scored on the 8.5 inch side at 4 1/4. So we're just going to fold on the score line and burnish with our bone folder. And you could sponge the edges, but I'm not going to today because I'm going to spend that extra time on the front panel. So I'm just going to set that aside for now. And then I'm going to take my front panel, which is 5 1/4 by 4 inches, and I'm going to run it through the Big Shot with the painted texture 3D embossing folder. And I've got it in here, and I would have already actually run it through. So I'm going to bring that out for you to see. Just so you know, the correct sandwich for this would be the standard platform, then the 3D embossing folder with the cardstock in it, and then the specialty plate, which is number 5, I think, 4 or 5. No, probably number 4, yeah. Okay, and then just run that through. And this gives that, I guess, oil paint texture on it, palette knife strokes, which I thought would take the place of actual embossing paste, which I used on this card. So we've got that. And I want to add right now some of this very vanilla scallop lace trim. And I'm just going to put that right on here, and I'm going to do that before I actually sponge on or use the blender brush to put on some crumb cake dye. Okay, so I'm just going to turn this over. I'm going to use some Seal Plus, which is really good for adding things like this. So I'm just going to add a strip across, and a strip across here. This way we can put it where we want it. and figure out about where we want it, which is about an inch if we take it from the straight edge here. There we go. All right, I'm going to actually get my silicone craft sheet to put it on just so it doesn't stick to my grid paper. And I'm going to get my blending brush and my crumb cake ink. And we're going to ink up, learn what I told everybody before and just hold it from the sides instead of top and bottom so that I don't get ink on my hands. And then I'm just going to lightly rub some of that off. And I'm just going to, looks like I didn't get much on there. It's not coming off very easily. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to put it right on over the lace. And this is going to just really help show up some of the texture that that embossing folder added. We're going to see it mostly around the edges because the middle part will be but this ages the lace trim as well. When I first started stamping, vintage cards were the thing, and that's partly what made me fall in love with stamping, I think, because I just loved creating that aged look and that sort of Victorian style. Ambience with the cards. I think that's just about enough. Just maybe add a little bit more to the lace. Okay. Now we're going to do one more step to age the card, and that's using this splatter stamp, and that stamp is from actually the Quiet Meadow stamp set. That up, and when I did it the first time it was still pretty strong, so I had already stamped it off once. I'm going to stamp it off a couple of times before I add it. I'm mostly going to add it around the edges because, again, you won't see it if you add it to the middle. Just turn it a bit so it's a different orientation. Looks different. And then on the other side. How are those little grandkids of yours doing, Terry? So this is chipboard that comes with your foil, like foil sheets. So it's fairly stiff, and it's got probably about 1/16 of an inch thickness. And then we're going to add a piece of the In Good Taste dark wood grain designer series paper to that. So I'm going to use the Seal Plus again for that. So I'm just going to add a couple of strips of that and across the top, just so the edges are all taken care of. And then, because this is so sticky, I want to only have one edge down when I match it up. And I can just feel the edge here, make sure that it's even with that edge. And then I'll put down another edge. I cut the cardboard just slightly smaller than the wood grain, just a little bit, just to make sure that that wood grain wouldn't be showing too much. Okay, so now we can add this right to our card face. So again, I'm using the Seal Plus, which is a very strong adhesive. I'll put a little bit extra in the middle here to make sure it stays on. And again, I just want one edge touching as I line it up where I want it. And depending where you put your lace, you want it right by the lace, and just center it vertically. There we go. All right. So now what we need are the grapevine pieces to add onto this. So I'm just going to set this aside for a moment. I guess we need to use this when I do that. So I have just an extra piece. It's like 4 1/4 by 5 3/4. It was just left over when I cut the other pieces. And I'm going to bring out my Big Shot platform here. Oh, my Stampin' Cut and Emboss platform. I'll have to edit that out. It just slips out every once in a while. Okay, so I'm going to use the Grapevine dies from the bundle. And these are the pieces that I want to die cut. So I want to die cut this grapevine flourish here. And this cuts and embosses. So I'm going to add that. Then I want to add these extra leaves. So I'll just put those in here. And then I want to, yes, this one. I want to die cut a couple of these flourishes, so I'll have to pass it through twice with that. So I have already done that, and I have them all cut out here, and all the extra little bits taken out to save time. So we're going to bring all those pieces out. And we're going to add them to our card front. So we're going to start with our grapevine. It is going to go on here like this. So I'm going to start by using my liquid glue and just shake it down to the end. Oh, I got a brand new liquid glue here. I have to take off the wrappings. So I want to make sure it's, all the glue is down at the tip. Looks like it's raring to go on a hot day like this. I'll just have to calm it down a bit here, or we're going to get too much. So I'm just going to add, whoa, look at that. It's too hot. Let's see if we can get it to calm down. Yeah, it's really, that's better. Now it's calmed down a bit. So I'm not squeezing it or anything, it's just coming. There we go. But you don't want great big globs like that. You can spread it, some of them over the leaves. Spread them around a bit. That should be plenty. Hot day, full thing of glue, and that's what you end up with. Okay, so we'll just add this right where it is. Okay, now we're going to add on those two little flourishes in the corners. So shake it into the tip, barely any pressure, and just touch the tip to your paper, cardstock. Just get those tiny little bits of glue on there. And then you could use tweezers. It's already stuck to my fingers, so add that there. And just touching it, just touching the tip of the glue nozzle. And you should get enough glue to hold things where you need them. I'm going to use this pair of tweezers here. There. Okay. Now we're going to take all of these extra grape leaves. We're going to add them. So I'm just turning them all over, and I'm going to add mini glue dots to the back. Make sure we've got the back of all of them. Yeah. Okay. I'll get my minis. Here we go. And we'll just put a mini on each. So could you sponge each of these? If you wanted to take the time, you could. But with the sponging of the other elements, it's not strictly necessary. I like the difference that it creates by not. But if you have the time and the inclination, then go right ahead. Okay, so I'm just removing the film from the back, and then just changing the orientation so it's a little different from the others in the vicinity. And just putting that in where it's a little bit sparser, like up here, and perhaps one here, one down here, And as they get smaller towards the outside of the vine. But this adds to the three-dimensional look of it. What will I do this one? Probably right here. Okay, so there's all those little extra leaves. Then we're going to do the sentiment. I'll just get that out of the way for now. And so I'm using Very Vanilla for the sentiment, just for some variety. I'm going to stamp the sentiment in early espresso ink to kind of mirror the dark wood. This one says "You're so sweet," but there's several on the Forever Grapevine that you could use. Probably the thank you would fit into this shape here. Forever Grateful would work as well, besides the "You're so sweet." And you could probably find other sentiments from other stamps sets that you could use. So "You're so sweet." And then we're going to use the crumb cake for stamping the dotted shape, which is the same shape as a coordinated die that we're going to use to die cut it. So that's on there. And then we'll find the proper die. Bring this back here for a minute. And we'll put these away. Oh, I've already got those removed. And we'll just bring this back. And line this up. This is why I like that old magnetic platform so much, because it holds things in place. So I'm just going to run that through my Stamp and Cut emboss machine. All those squeaks and pops you're hearing are the machine at work. There's what we end up with. We can get rid of those. So now we're going to use our blending brush. I don't know if I've got enough crumb cake left on it. I don't think I do. So we'll bring the crumb cake ink back in, and we'll ink it up again, and take off that first blush of ink, and just take this around the edges. You can also use a sponge dauber for this. And I was wondering how, it would work with the blending brushes to catch the edges of. I used to just flick them with a sponge. It turns out you can do that with a blending brush too. So that's probably enough. So this we're going to add some dimensionals to. We could use the smaller ones or the larger ones for this. I'm going to grab a couple of bigger ones because it's faster. Oops. Too many there. Okay, and we'll just remove the backings and add just kind of tuck that into the grapevine a little bit. Okay, now before we do anything else, I think we'll bring back our card base and add this back to the card base. And what'll I use? I guess, oh, that's almost out. Rather than take time, maybe I'll just use some liquid, multi-purpose liquid glue. Quick and easy. And the nice thing about multi-purpose liquid glue is it gives you a few minutes to make sure you've got it centered, so you can play with it for a minute or two before it sets up and you don't have any choices anymore. Okay, center that. Perfect. All right. And because it's got so many layers on it, I'm just going to open it up and level it off there. Now we have something that's going to balance it out because there's a lot of empty space up there. So we've got these bumblebee trinkets. So I'm going to use a couple of those. So we're going to put one up there. And stick one down here. There. Right about like that. And we have also these ladybug trinkets that are still available for a couple of days before they're gone for good. So if you still want some of those, you'll have to act fast because they're retiring with the January to June mini catalog.